Good morning. And today we're down in Felling. Mightn't look like it. We're on a bit of waste ground that used to be Felling Colliery. And we're going to talk about the 1812 disaster at Felling. There's not much left to show here, but it was one of the main pit disasters that led to the introduction of the safety lamp. The main one is a Davy lamp, but up here was a Geordie lamp designed by George Stevenson, but we'll get onto that later. So let's begin. Felling Colliery had 4 main explosion disasters. We're going to concentrate on the first one, which happened in 1812. The pit opened in 1778, I think, and the first went down to what was called the high main, which was the seam that they were doing at the time, but that ceased in 1811. But before that ceased, they went lower and put the lower main in. The lower main was roughly 564 feet underground. To provide adequate ventilation, 2 shafts were built, the John Pitt shaft and the William Pitt shaft. The John Pitt shaft was an intake shaft where the men went down, but also intook the air to blast it through. And to help blast it through, the William Pitt was the updraft, where they'd build a fire at the bottom and the heat rises so it sucks all the air through the pit. So have a look around, there's not a great deal left here. Bits of concrete and that, and the odd railway sleeper. And this was before the invention of the safety lamp. The only practical source of light was a candle. Where explosive gas was suspected, a spudding mill was used, which is a steel cylinder which revolves at high speed against a flint, resulting in a shower of sparks to give some light. Although mills were safer than candles, the Wallsend Colliery explosion of 1785 had shown that they caused explosions as well. At 11:30 on Monday, 25th of May 1812, the first explosion occurred. For half a mile around, the earth shook and the noise was heard up to 4 miles away. And in the pit shafts, large clouds of dust and small coals were thrown up, as well as small particles, coal baskets and pieces of wood. The dust fell like a shower for up to 1.5 miles. The pit heads carrying the pulleys of both pits were blown off and set fire and the pulleys broken. At the William Pit, the upcast fed the horizontal flue on the surface, which led to a stack. Coal dust was distributed 3 inches thick within the flume, and it burned to a light cinder. The pulleys for the horse whim at John Pitt were mounted on a crane which swung away from the shaft. As a result, this remained undamaged, and men on the surface applied themselves to place the horses and brought 33 survivors and 2 corpses out of the quarry. 3 of the survivors subsequently died. 87 men and boys were left below ground. 45 minutes after the initial explosion, at 12:15, a rescue team descended the shaft. Because the fire damp, they used the spurred mills to light their way. It was noted that the sparks fell like dark droplets of blood due to the foul air. Having attempted 2 directions and been forced back by the difficult breathing, they retreated to the bottom of the pit. The party ascended, but while 2 men were still below, they were in the shaft and a second explosion occurred. The rescue team all agreed that there was no possibility of the men left below ground being alive. The 2 explosions, black damp, fire and lethal afterdamp, made any rescue attempt impossible. The suggestion was made that the pit be stopped up to extinguish the fire. On the following day, William Pit was closed over with planks. On the Wednesday, smoke was seen billowing out of the John Pit shaft, so it was decided to cover up that as well, so they put planks and clay over, and they also put clay over the William Pit to smother the fire out. It was left there for nearly a month before they reopened the pit and sent 3 men down. They went down the William Pit shaft and found that the air was breathable. So over the next few days they recovered the bodies and started securing the pit, making sure everything was safe. The parish priest for Jarrah and Hewitt, a Reverend John Hodgson, suggested that the bodies were buried quickly because of the length of time that they'd spent on the ground, and they were starting to decay and become pretty putrid. So they're buried at St Mary's Church, which we're going off to. And finally, on the 20th of September, 117 days after the initial explosion, the pit was reopened. And all apart from one body were brung out. It's still never been found to this day. We're now in St Mary's churchyard at Hewitt, where the 92 who lost their lives are buried. And within the churchyard, for walking just down here, there's a memorial to the 92. And that's a memorial there with brass plaques with the names on and going round. The cause of the first explosion is not known for certain. The most probable cause was probably a fire damp. There's no evidence of large amount of coal dust in the air. It was probably just an open flame of the candle and a fire damp that's caused it. The tragedy inspired Hodgson to raise public concern about the hazards of mining. Public interest was fed by a short pamphlet written by him and published prior to the second disaster in the late 1813. Hodgson wrote for the interest of the public, not the practical miners, and as such explained mining terms and procedures. His description and analysis of the 2 explosions were historical significant as one of the first attempts to scientific analysis of such events. On the 1st of October 1812, the Sunderland Society was set up, consisting of clergymen, doctors, owners and mine managers. One of the doctors was a William Reed Clanny, who had already produced a first impractical safety lamp. Also present, George Stevenson, who at the time was an engine wright at Killingworth Collieries. The Society aimed for greater publicity for accidents and their causes, and the scientific study of ventilation and the development of the safety lamps. Stevenson designed a safety lamp known as the Geordie lamp, with the air fed through narrow tubes down which a flame could not move. It also led Sir Humphrey Davy to devise another safety lamp, the Davy lamp, in which the flame was surrounded by iron gauze. The gauze had to have small spaces so the flame could not pass through, but could admit methane, which then burned harmlessly inside the lamp. The height of the luminous cone above the flames gave a measure of the methane concentrate in the atmosphere. Although the Felling Colliery disaster 1812 was catastrophic, lessons were learned and safety measures came about because of it, and also because of the Reverend Hodgson. Although there was further disasters at the pit, not as big, and people did lose their lives, it made mining a fractional safer. Not totally safe though. If you like this sort of video, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, hit that notification bell for future videos, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.